Okay. So for Rowena and for Ms. Schwartz, so that your 5 minutes of life is not wasted, I think it would be unfair to bring you here for nothing. Okay, we'll make sure, so I'm gonna make sure that you get something important within the first 3 seconds that will absolutely change your life. Okay, I promise that I am going to change your life forever, that you will never be in synagogue the same again.
Okay.
Okay, now I can make that promise. So first of all, so when I was a kid and I went to synagogue, all I remember is stand up, sit down, right? The rabbi, he seems to have no other job. That was his job. Congregation may rise, congregation may be seated. And then once you got to the high holidays, then it was like the hokey pokey, right? You know, it was like standing up, standing down, standing up, standing down, standing up, standing down. So I'm gonna give you the big secret to standing up and sitting down. And from now on, you can understand, and you'll also understand why sometimes we get confused. So basically, standing up is a gesture of witnessing something. Okay, so when do we stand up? We stand up in Jewish prayer when we're bearing witness to something, or when we feel like we are in the direct presence of God. So kind of imagine, right? So imagine you're going to see, there's so few people in the world who are important anymore, but imagine you're going to see King Charles. Right? You're going to stand in front of King Charles. You're not going to, oh, hey, Jay, King, nice to meet you, right? You're not going to be leaning back in your chair and kind of looking around. You're going to be standing and you're going to be paying attention, standing at attention. So when we're standing at attention before a superior, before God, that's one time we're standing, and the other is when we're bearing witness to something. Just like when you go to a British courtroom, because in American courtrooms, witnesses no longer stand. But I think in British courtrooms, witnesses still stand. I believe so. But that's witnessing. Now, whenever we need Yeshuva Da'at, whenever we need for our minds to be focused and for us to have intention and kavanah, we sit, right? Because that's puts our body at relaxation, no longer kind of worried about keeping erect and so forth. And so we're able to focus. So those parts of the prayer where focus is required, right? Where focus is required, those things are going to be seated. And those parts where we're witnessing to something, bearing witness, we stand up.
What kind of thing would one, I mean, that doesn't quite make sense to me. Like what would you bear witness to?
Okay, so a very good example. Okay, we stand up for Aleinu at the very end. Okay, now if you read the words to Aleinu, right, it's essentially taking an oath. It's saying, I'm taking an oath that such and such, this is my responsibility, right? I'm taking an oath. I'm bearing witness that I'm bearing witness. I'm making like a legal declaration. So whenever we're making one of those legal declarations or like a legal declaration, we're standing up.
And also to give honor.
Right, no, and also to give honor. Just like I said, when you're standing in the Amidah, it's in order to give honor. But there's a logical reason for it. Now, sometimes you say, wait a second, there are sometimes when I see people are standing up and people are sitting down. Now, that often happens when we have a dispute about the nature of what it is that we're doing at that moment, right? So there can be an argument about, okay, so what is the meaning of this? Well, I think that the Shema is a very good example, right? Shema could be, right, a form of witnessing, right? Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That sounds like bearing witness, right? Certainly it does, right? I'm proclaiming a fundamental truth. I should stand up, right? You should stand up. On the other hand, right, it's a very deep concept, that unity of God, right? It's very deep, and it requires a certain meditative state of mind, right? That's where we close our eyes and everything else because we need to focus. So you would think that he would sit. So the consensus is that we sit, but there are opinions that you should stand, right? The opinion that you should stand is only based on this idea that it's witnessing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so in the Amidah, people stand at the beginning, then after, the cantor sings or the Kedusha, then a lot of people sit down, and
Yes.
some people stand for the whole thing.
Correct.
What would be the right thing to do?
Some people stand and some people
The
sit.
whole thing, right?
Yeah, so the,
Yeah.
right, so the Sephardi custom is to stand through, stand through the whole thing. There's a logic behind that. The logic behind that is that the repetition is a kind of unique, is a kind of unique privilege because it's something that would normally be whispered. And we say something out loud that would normally be whispered, that's a special privilege. So in honor of that special privilege, we should stay standing up, right? The Ashkenazi approach is no, this is something now that requires our attention, right? And so it's better for us to be seated and to be answering Amen from answering Amen. Right, you could do either one.
The first, that's Musaf I was asking about it.
That's both, it's for both.
And the same with the one we.
It's for both. It's for both, right? And at our age, okay, and no, except for Salma, except for at our age, I'm joking. Yes, you can sit. Yeah, you can.
So I have a question.
Yes,
When we do Kiddush in Friday night.
yes,
In my tradition, and we are Syrian,
yes,
the women stand up.
yes,
The Moroccans sitting down, the women.
yes. Okay.
So it's a
So
culture.
that's a great example. Okay, that's a great example. So there's when it comes to Kiddush, there's a big discussion about it.
Yeah.
Because when you stand and when you make Kiddush, what are you doing? You're bearing witness, right? You're
Yeah.
bearing witness.
Yeah.
You're saying that God is the creator of the world. He created the world in 7 days. You're bearing witness clearly. But it's also connected to the meal, right? And a meal is something which requires yeshivadat, right? In order to be focused and so forth. So what some people do is they stand, right? That they stand in order to make the kiddush, and then when they make the bracha on the wine, they sit down, right? Other people, they make the bracha on the wine, then they sit down, and some people sit down for the entire thing.
Especially for the woman.
Yeah. So in general, you should do whatever the person who's leading does, you should do.
I see.
Right?
Okay, so.
Yeah. So if a person is standing, if the person making kiddush is standing up, you should stand up. You should stand up also. You should stand up also. But I know Moroccans have things. Everybody has their things. Everybody has their things. Okay, so okay, we still have 2 more minutes. Okay, I operate on a completely different calendar. The second thing that will change your life. All Jewish prayer has 3 themes. Okay, please, thank you, and I love you. Okay, so every single prayer in the siddur. Okay, if you wanted to, you could take a little colored marker and you could make a check about whether or not its main theme is please, thank you, or I love you. Please is bakasha, is making the supplication, is asking for something. Thank you, hodea, gratitude, right? And I love you, shevach, right? When we praise God, really, what are we saying? We're saying, I love you. On Shabbat, there's no bakasha. On Shabbat, there's no asking for anything. There's no supplication, right? So on Shabbat, right, we're down to 2. Okay, we're down to thank you and I love you. Okay, there's no please on Shabbat. Now there are some sly exceptions. There's some sly exceptions. We sneak in a prayer for sick people. We sneak in a prayer for sick people. We have a strange wording for it. we say, even though we don't ask for things on Shabbat, still, if it's okay, but still, we don't ask for things for Shabbat. Okay, third, a mitzvah without kavanah is like a body without a soul. It's really important. What we're doing here by learning about the inside of tefillah and learning about the meaning of tefillah is absolutely important. Okay, was it the best 5 minutes of your life? On the top 10 of the best? Okay. Okay.
Oh, didn't know she was.
Okay. Okay. I knew, so that's why I was cramming it on this. I wanted to make sure that those 5 minutes counted. Okay.
But you're still on the third one.
Third one. I'm on the third one.
Okay.
I'm on the third one. So third one, a mitzvah kavana is like a body without intent. Very important what we're doing here to really prepare ourselves. And it's really essential. And fourth, preparation is part of the mitzvah. Part of prayer is preparing yourself for prayer. So one of the things I highly recommend is just as I said before, that just as before you go to the gym, you warm up, right? You give yourself a couple of stretches and so forth. Before you come into the synagogue, give yourself a pep talk, right? Talk to yourself a little bit about your preparation for prayer, that I'm coming, set an intention for yourself. I'm coming to pray. I'm coming to have a conversation with my creator, whatever else is going on, because the synagogue is complicated. There are lots of things going on. So I'm here to say a few good words to you. And to have that preparation. And lastly, I wanted to share, and before we begin with the text, I wanted to share a thought from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. He talks about, he said, "She'ikar shleimut tefillah." What is the essence of tefillah? He says, "Baruch atah Adonai." He says that's the essence of tefillah. Now it's interesting, so when we repeat information over and over and over again, it tends to lose its meaning. That's information theory, right? When we hear something over and over and over again, it starts to become trivial to us. And very often when people pray, right, the words that they don't say, Baruch atah Hashem, right? Baruch atah, you can't even hear it because they're speeding through it so fast, it's so familiar. And he says, no, Baruch atah Adonai is our fundamental prayer. It's our fundamental prayer. To say that God is Baruch, that he's the source of all blessing, and to be able to say atah, to be able to address God directly without any intermediary, and to be able to call God Adonai, my Lord, Hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh, he who was and he who is and he who always will be. To address God as being the transcendent God who's beyond, who infuses all of nature, but is also beyond nature. And in 3 words, that is a remarkable thing.
That's what you're calling me all that.
Yes, yeah. That's why that's an amazing, those 3 words, right? Those 2 words. So please, okay, if nothing else, don't rush through those 3 words. Okay, Baruch atah Adonai are beautiful, beautiful and important words. And so don't rush over them. Okay.
Wait, that's another question.
Hey.
Wait, you said something about we're blessing God or we're blessing us when we say those words.
That's a good question. So
I think I'm
okay.
talking about blessing God.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. So there's two different approaches to the phrase Baruch atah Adonai. Okay. So the Shalah, the Shnei Luchot Abrit, Rabbi Eliyahu Horvitz, he puts it this way. He says we should understand the words Baruch atah Adonai as being an A equals B sentence. Okay, so God So God, you are the Baruch. Okay, as a noun, right? What is the Baruch? Baruch is the source of all blessing, right? And related to the word Baruch, which means like a pool, like a pool of blessing. You are the source of all blessing. Okay, in which case we are not blessing God, right? And because we're not blessing God, we're acknowledging that He's the source of all blessing. So Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch disagrees with this completely, and he says something interesting. He says, no. He says, actually, it is a verb, and we actually are blessing God. And then he says, well, okay, so what kind of chutzpah is that? What kind of arrogance is it to think that you can bless God? It's a strange thing to say, that you can bless God. So he says that the uniqueness of being a human being is that we are given free will. We are B'Tselem Elokim. We're in the image of God in the sense that we have free will. And that everything that's beautiful and wonderful about us is that we have free will. And part of that free will is that He gives us the ability even to bless Him. He gives us the power, so to speak, to be able to even bless Him. So you can think of it either way. I tend to think of it the first way. I tend to think of it the first way. That's kind of is more kind of my way of thinking about the world. I think of God as being the source of the source of all blessings. So okay.
Thank you, that's interesting.
Okay. So speaking of Baruch, we're going to take a look at our first text. Open up the siddur to page 321. Now, my goal here, so everybody should know why they're doing what they're doing. My goal here is really not so much to cover a lot of ground. I don't want to cover a lot of ground. What I want to do is try to teach a method. I want us to get used to really reading this stuff. Okay, so I just chose 3 interesting pieces to just give us a sense of what it means to kind of really read this stuff a little bit more deeply, so that we can do this on our own, right? So think of this as being kind of like an educational empowerment, right? We all have reading skills, we have literary skills, and sometimes we think with prayers, we don't need to apply those things, right? We think of them as being somehow different from other kinds of writing, but they're really not different from other kinds of writing. This is meant to be read, to be recited, and to be understood. And so that's where we're going to start.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
What time in the morning does Baruch Sheamar begin? I'm just.
Right. So with us,
When you serve it,
Baruch She'amar is going to, let's see, Hodu is at 9 o'clock, probably around 9:30.
This one is around 9:30.
Right, probably about 9:30 or so. Okay. So Baruch She'amar, there are 2 versions here. I've never seen the long version on the right. I've never seen it before. The version that everybody uses is the one which is on the left. The reason why, by the way, it says at the top, it says the regular 87 word version is because 87, right, spells the word
87?
yes.
The regular 87.
Okay, in Hebrew, 87 spells Pei,
Oh,
Zion, Paz, which means gold,
gold.
fine gold. Okay, so it says it's a common mnemonic for this. So
So we read the one on the left, the long version?
the long version on the left, yes.
Baruch She'amar.
Yes. Now, if you take a look, I just wanted to show you on the top of my
Sheet?
top of my sheet on the second page. I just wanted to show you how the Koran siddur, that's another siddur, has kind of laid out the Hebrew. It's actually quite beautiful, the way that they laid it out. right? So they laid it out to show the structure. So if you can see the structure a little more clearly in that siddur, right? So it says for Baruch Sheamar v'Ha'elam Baruch Hu, the opening bracha, and then you see the word Baruch, 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 right? It's really beautiful. It's a beautiful structure, the way this is the way this is done, and they did a very nice job.
But that's not in our siddur, correct?
Yeah, our siddur, yes, our siddur
Doesn't have that.
doesn't have that, unfortunately. Our siddur has many
Siddur, maybe the old Siddur, we had it.
no
The same?
no yeah our siddur has many strengths. One of it does not have the strength of having very kind of interesting ways of laying out the text. It doesn't have very interesting ways of laying out the text. The text is pretty, it's laid out very basically. The same was true of the previous one. The Quran just happens to do a very good job of that. Okay, so let's take a look at Baruch She'amar. So it starts out. And you know what we'll do is we'll do it. I think most of us are English speakers. We'll do it in English, but I'll kind of push us back into the Hebrew when it's particularly appropriate. So it starts out, okay. Blessed is the one who spoke, and the world came into being. So it starts out. This is really. So this is the beginning of the Psuke de Zimra that we talked about last week. The beginning of the set of Psalms, which are kind of preparing our heart for prayer. Remember I said Psuke means, it's kind of Psuke Zimra means the cutting away of the weeds, so to speak. And it starts out with a very powerful theological statement. Baruch She'amar v'Ha'elam. He says, God spoke and the world came to being. That is, of course, a way of creating that is completely unique to God. We can't speak and create things. But then Baruch Hu. So whenever we see Hu, whenever we see Hu left hanging like that, it means he and he alone. Not just that he is the one, he is the source of all blessing, but that he alone is the source of all blessing. Baruch Omer v'Yoseh, that he speaks and he acts. Blessed is he who decrees and fulfilled. Blessed is he who maintains the creation. He says, Oseh Ma'aseh Bereshit, that he's keeping the creation going. This is an important theological point. It's not just, right? When we say Baruch She'amar v'Ha'elam, we can think, okay, God created the world, right? God created the world, and it came into existence. And now maybe he is like the great clockmaker, right? He made the clock and he's gone away, and we're deists. But here it's saying no. It says he created the world, but nevertheless, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, he continues to make the creation. He continues to keep the creation, going. Baruch says it is he who has compassion on the earth. Blessed is he who has compassion on creation. Blessed is he who provides a good reward to those who revere him. So it's not just, so on the one hand, right, he's the creator of the world. On the other hand, he's keeping the world in motion. He's keeping it going. And why is he keeping it going? It's an expression of his rahamim. It's an expression of his mercy. It's an expression of his kindness. He provides a good reward to those who revere him. Blessed is God who lives forever and exists for eternity. So in case you thought, okay, God was the creator, but he's not eternal, that he's eternal. Blessed is he who removes darkness and brings light. It's a beautiful image. Blessed is he before whom there is no injustice, no forget. I'm on the wrong side. Sorry about that. Wrong side. Blessed he provides a good reward to those who revere. Blessed he who lives forever and exists for eternity. Blessed is he who redeems and rescues. Blessed is his name. Blessed, and whenever we say God's name, so why do you say blessed is God and blessed is God's name? What's the difference between those two? Right? Very often we talk about Baruch Shem Kavod. Why do we say Shem? Why do we keep mentioning God's name? So the name of a person is the way by which they are known. Right? It's the way it's the way they're known. It's their reputation. It's their impact in the world. Right? So when we say here that blessed is when we say here, the redeems from asking, blessed is his name. Okay, so we're saying not only in his essence, but blessed also in his impact in the world, the way that we experience him in the world.
I want to ask you a question. Are you
Yeah.
reading the left side? Or
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm reading.
left side.
You're supposed to be reading the left side, aren't you?
No, well, the inside column,
You said the left side.
the
in
inside column, left side in the
I'm
Hebrew.
talking
The
about the left side
inside
in
column.
English, too.
It says the regular 87 word version, inside column.
I thought you said we weren't reading them.
I'm reading the inside column, sorry. I was thinking of the Hebrew. I meant the Hebrew.
You see, the Hebrew, it's on the left,
I'm not
Yes.
doing the Hebrew because I don't do Hebrew.
so in English, it's in
It's
the right.
English, it's on the right.
It's the long version.
Yes, no, it says the
Well,
regular.
It doesn't matter. I'm reading English. I
Yes,
can't
the
read
regular, okay.
It's a regular 87 word version.
Yes,
in English.
exactly.
I apologize.
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
exactly. As I said, I've never seen this longer version. This is special. Yeah. Again, it must be that in some place in Morocco, they must use the long version,
Okay.
somewhere. In Tangiers, maybe
Okay.
use the long version. Okay. So blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the world, the God who is compassionate, Father, who is lauded by the mouth of his people, glorified and exalted by the tongue of his righteous ones, his servants. Okay, now, why we're referencing this? Now we're kind of slipping into the mode of a bracha, because remember, this is the beginning of the Psuka de Zimra. We're about to read a bunch of Tehillim. We're going to read a lot of Psalms, right? We're going to read a lot of poems, and so this is the introduction to the reading of those poems. Who is lauded by the mouth of his people, glorified and exalted by the tongue of his righteous ones and his servants, with the songs of your servant David. Right? We're about to recite these Tehillim. With praises and melodies, we will magnify you, glorify you, exalt you, and crown you. Right? And so that gives us the idea of, so what are we doing? Right? When we're reciting these songs, when we're singing in these songs, when we're what are we doing? He says, we're magnifying, we're glorifying you, we're exalting you, we're crowning you. These are all ways of us to elevate our conception of God, right? It's not for God, right? Tefillah, the hitpalel is a reflexive verb. It's for our benefit, right? God doesn't change, right? God is not changed by our praise. God is not changed but we are, right? Our ability to understand God, understand God's relationship, our relationship with God, and our ability to appreciate God's awesomeness, that does change. Okay, so we glorify you, exalt you, crown you, recall your name, our God. It says, and this naskir shimcha, this word naskir, to remember, is a very, very, very deep concept in Judaism. To remember, it doesn't just mean to remember like I remember I remembered my childhood address, or I remembered going to the beach. It means to draw something into your mind in it constantly, to have something constantly in your mind. Recall your name, our God, our King, the only one. It says Yahid, right? Yahid, that God is the only one. Now, what does it mean that God is the only one? So God has an absolute unique existence. There is nothing else in the world that is one. So let's take I have a nice table here. I call it a table, right? Is it really one thing? It's not one thing, right?
It's made up of.
It's made up of all sorts of parts, right? It's made up of all sorts of parts. I call it one thing by a convention. Okay, myself, right? I'm composed of thousands and thousands, millions, I don't know how many billions of cells, each one different, differentiated, and so forth. I refer to myself as an individual. I am a one, but in truth, I am not one. So God is Yahid. He's Yahid. He's unique in his oneness, completely different from anything else in the creation, right? And he is Chai Olamim, the life of the worlds. Life is one thing we don't understand at all. Really, we don't. I read a lot of, I love biology. I love biology, and I don't know a lot about biology, but I know one thing. We have no idea what life is. We have no clue. We have no idea. We know that there are genes which turn it off slowly. That's what many of us are going through at this moment, right? As we age, right? As we age, various genes kind of turn off various functions in our body and so on, and we experience aging. And then eventually we experience death, as do almost all creatures. There are a few creatures that don't die. Naked mole rats. Don't ask why, nobody knows. Naked mole rats do not die. They are eternal. Unless they die by accident. They have no gene that switches on. They have no aging. They would theoretically live forever. Nobody knows exactly why. But aside from naked mole rats, okay, we have nothing.
What is more rats in Hebrew?
Mole rats.
Yeah.
There. I don't think there is a word.
That's the
for
next course. Go ahead.
them. Look them up
Let's not
online.
dwell on it. The clock is
Naked
ticking.
mole rats.
A rat.
They are the single ugliest creature in the entire world.
Maybe that's why it's living forever.
They are.
That's how we define beauty. You don't know what
Just
they're-
imagine a very angry looking naked hamster. That's what they look like. Yeah.
Click on
Yes. But they do live forever. But hey, olamim, life of the world. He is the mystery of the fact that we have life in the world, that you can take inorganic matter and it can have consciousness, it can have consciousness, it can have movement, and can reproduce all of these magical, amazing things that life does. He's that life. Melech mishubach umvoar adi ad shemo gadol. He is the it says, and we glorify and exalted King. His name endures forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, the King who is lauded with praises. That makes sense. You would say, lauded with praises, because that's what we're about to do, right? That's what's going to happen now. Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, I just wanted to go through it just to see, you see like some of the deep stuff that's in here. This is like, and unfortunately, we tend to speed through these things. Thank God this is one of the things that we do sing and we do recite fairly slowly, but it's very, very deep. There's very deep things. You could spend a lot of time. You could spend a lot of time in here. So let's try another one. I feel like sometimes the best thing is to try to take something which is very familiar, and you'll see that it's not as familiar as you think.
Where are we going now, to Ashrei?
So go to Ashrei. So page 323, 324. Okay, and there are not two different versions, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to confuse you with that. Okay, so 323. Okay. Okay.
It's not on here, right? Is it on this sheet?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I'll explain.
Okay.
So the reason why you have these sheets is there are people who are right-brained and there are people who are left-brained. Okay, there are people who are very analytical and people who are more kind of artistic and creative, and so I'm probably more on that artistic and creative side. Okay, but for those people, Roz, who might be a little bit on the other side of the brain, I made this.
Not left-handed, so
Okay.
my right foot-
That's really, you're
I'm
left-handed?
I'm left-handed too.
Right,
Okay,
I'm creative, aren't I?
yes, you are, you should, yeah, yes.
So,
I don't know,
Hey, let's not get
maybe
started.
that's not, I don't know.
I'm refuting
So-
your theory.
So she's refuting my theory, so what happened?
Didn't I send
Okay,
an email? How
in
can I
any
fix
case,
this?
for those people who are more analytical kind of mind, that's for you to review later, so you can kind of remember some of the stuff that we went over. Okay, so Ashrei, one of the nice things about this siddur, by the way, is if you look on the far left of the page, he gives you sources. So if you want to know where everything is coming from, if you want to know where everything is coming from, it says Tehillim 84, and then it says Ibid. Thank you for the Latin. 144.
We need French for this
144.
show.
And then exactly. I think it's Ibid is short for Ibidum. Is that what I think that is?
What is it? It's short for what?
Ibidum. It means above. It
Uh,
means above. It means the same as above. So it means Tehillim 84, and then Tehillim 144, and Tehillim 145. So really what you have here is Ashrei is mostly Tehillim 145. It's directly from Tehillim, but then we add a little piece of another Tehillim we tack it onto the very beginning. And here again, right, we have a very familiar thing. We learned it as children. We learn it with a nice tune. Right?
They had the kids singing.
Right, the kids sing it, and the moment, of course, kids sing anything, it becomes like a kid thing. Okay, so let's see if it's really a kid thing. I think it's not a kid thing. First of all, let's start with the first verse. Ashrei yoshvei betecha od yalucha selah. Happy are those who dwell in your house. The word selah, by the way, that occurs many times in the Psalms, has no clear meaning. We're not exactly sure what it means. Rashi says it means eternal, which would be great if that made sense in every context. It doesn't. Another possibility is that it's a kind of a musical notation, that it means that when you're reciting this, you hold it longer. That's another possibility. That it's kind of like a singing notation.
But it's not a rock, because Selah.
No, it's not a rock. It's definitely not a.
With ayin,
Yeah, with
it's
an iron, with a be a rock. No, it's definitely not definitely not a rock. Okay, so happy are those who dwell in your house, right? May they always praise you, Selah. Happy is this nation that has this. Happy is the nation whose God is Hashem. Now, this is so Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, right? Happy are the people who are sitting in your house. This is, of course, where are you when you're saying this? Usually you're sitting in the synagogue. By the way, the custom is that if you have to use the synagogue for some reason as a shortcut, let's say I needed something from that back room back there, the storage room, right? So if I have to go through the synagogue, right, what should I do? Right? I shouldn't just go through the synagogue, I should sit down. So the custom is to say this verse. Sit down and say, Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, how nice it is to sit in your, right? How nice it is to sit in your house. May they always praise you. Happy is the nation that has this, happy is the nation whose God is Hashem. Okay. Then the actual Ashrei begins. Tila David, a praise the David. As I mentioned in my Psalms class, whenever it says Lid David, when it says Tehillah David, it means that he began the praise And then the Spirit of God came on him. Sometimes it comes on him before he speaks, sometimes it comes after he speaks. So in this case, it came on after he spoke, whatever that means. It says, I will elevate you, my God, the King, and I will bless your name forever and always. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and always. Adonai is great and very praiseworthy, and his greatness is immeasurable. Now, also note that this is an acrostic. So this is a poem that's constructed along the letters of the alphabet, right? Of the Aleph Bet. So it's Aleph Bet Gimel Daled Hey. Now it is missing one letter. It's missing the letter Nun, right? Which is the Talmud has a big discussion about this. The Talmud, right? The rabbis in the Talmud say anybody who says Ashrei 3 times a day, right? Well, is considered to be a person of heaven, right? This will get you into heaven, right? Just by saying this Tehillim, Ashrei 3 times a day, you get into heaven. So the rabbis ask the question, says, what's so special about this that it's going to get you into heaven? He says, well, it goes according to the Aleph Bet. Why is that so important? Because the Aleph Bet, remember, we said before, Baruch Sheamar v'haya olam. God created the world through speech, which means that the letters of the alphabet are in some sense the secret code through which the entire world was created. So whenever you see something that includes all the letters of the alphabet, it says that indicates that it's attempting to be universal. It's attempting to kind of cover the ground of the entire universe in some sense. So the rabbis responded, they said, well, that's very nice, but actually, there are a number of Psalms that work like that. In fact, there's one, Psalm 119, that does that 8 times. That actually, it goes in the order of the alphabet, and it gives 8 verses for each of the letters, right? So that's like 8 times. You'd think you have to say that 3 times a day. So then they argued back a little bit. They said, no, it's because of another verse, which we'll get to.
No, you know me.
I have no idea who that person is. Natan min ha'ar. Nathan from the mountain. That's a little scary.
On Everest,
I don't know. Somebody,
it's a prayer, you're not sure how to get there.
Nathan from the mountain. Okay,
From the mountain to the sea.
Oh, wow, now, hey, that must be somebody from the other side.
okay. Nathan from the mountain is still trying to call me. Like,
Well,
okay.
let's find out.
No. I'm
Because this woman, she was with the flag of Israel, and she's Palestine, and she said from the river to the sea, and as soon as they asked her, what river? And no, from the mountain to the sea.
from the
So
mountain.
maybe it's the mountain.
He's
don't.
persistent.
I have no
We'll
idea.
forgive you. Go ahead. we
No,
wanna know.
it's okay. It's okay.
Pray, pray.
If it were my daughter, I would answer it, but other than that, I don't answer. If it were
She's all
Salma,
married
I would
for
answer.
Woodford.
No. Okay, Natan from the mountain. Okay,
Sounds heavy.
it does sound heavy, right? Okay, so then there are then they said, okay, because it's potech et yadecha must be a kol haratzon, right? Because we're asking for parnasa, we're asking for God's provisions for us. So that's the reason why if we say it 3 times a day we get heaven. And then say no, because there are other verses that say the same thing or say similar things, and they say, okay, it's because it's both, because it has both. Okay.
But you said that this Ashrei didn't have the noon.
Yes, so
Okay.
Ashrei is said in the morning twice. Okay, so it said once, this person's.
Avram, take up a paper. Find out.
No, we're just gonna
We're
let,
yentas, we wanna know.
I have no idea who this person is.
It doesn't matter.
He must be
It's,
getting money.
it's also on like Facebook Messenger. And there's no person in the world who ever contacts me on Facebook Messenger. So
Oh, new
obviously,
discoveries.
it's one of my many fans.
Oh.
So
All right, send money.
yes, probably that's maybe one of those fans also. It could be. Okay. So yes, 3 times. So one time during Shacharit, then one time just before Musaf, and then in the afternoon for Mincha. So there are 3 times. So yeah, 3 times.
How far does it go? All the way to the end?
All the way to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna read it. Okay, ready? Okay. Okay, every day I will bless you and I will praise your name forever and always. Adonai is great and very praiseworthy, and his greatness is immeasurable. Each generation will praise your actions. Why am I reading this when I have Rowena? Rowena, why am I doing this? Rowena, continue. Okay, this is ridiculous.
Which page?
323 at the.
323 at the bottom.
34.
Rowena, can you start at Adonai?
Start at Adonai.
I have Rowena.
Bottom of page 323.
Yes.
Adonai is great and very praiseworthy, and his greatness is immeasurable. Each generation will praise your actions, and they will tell of your mighty feats. I will relate the glorious splendor of your enemies and the words of your wonders. They will speak of the power of your awesomeness, and I will tell of your greatness. They will express the remembrance of your tremendous goodness, and they will sing of your righteousness. Adonai is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abundantly kind. Adonai is good to all, and his mercy extends to all his creations. All your creation will acknowledge you, Adonai, and your pious followers will bless you. They will speak of the honor of your kingdom, and they will talk of your powerful deeds to inform the people of your mighty actions and the glory of your splendid majesty. Your kingdom is the majesty of the entire universe, and your dominion is over each and every generation. Adonai supports all those who fall and straightens all those who bend. All eyes look toward you in hope, and you give them their food in its proper time. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. Adonai is righteous in all his ways and pious in all his actions. Adonai is close to all who call to him, to all those who call to him with sincerity. He will perform the will of those who revere him, and he will hear their cries and save them. Adonai guards all those who love him, and he will destroy all those who are wicked. My mouth will speak the praise of Adonai, and all flesh will bless the name of his holiness forever and always. And we will bless God from now until eternity. Hallelujah.
You're hired. You're hired. You are new Chazan. No, I did that for a purpose. I did that for a purpose. I asked for Rowena to read because Rowena is a great reader. I think that one of the problems is we don't read like that. I mean, one of the problems is we've got, you're speed reading, right? So they're speed reading, right? Whoever's doing the davening is speed reading. And what are we trying to do, right? We're trying to keep up, right? We're worried about the page number, right? So what happens is we take a prayer like this and we're maybe scanning it, maybe we're catching a word, maybe we're catching a sentence. But you see how beautiful, beautiful it is when it's read. Beautiful and difficult. I'm not going to say it's not difficult. I mean, there's some.
I'm gonna tell you, when they're taking the Torah down in the grove, Elliot's daughter,
Yeah.
when she read this in
Yeah.
Hebrew, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she's really good.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's really good.
And she writes very clear, not.
She's very clear and she's very she's really good. Yeah, she's really good. Yeah. She's amazing to talk to too. It's just like very mature and very, she does a very good job.
Yes.
But for us, really, to engage with the text in the language we most understand is also really important. Now, for Hebrew speakers, it's easier, although not always. I remember when I was teaching Mishnah, and I had a class, and it was like, my class was 1/3 Chinese Don't ask why. 1/3 Chinese, 1/3 Israeli, and 1/3 American. Okay, and each had their challenges. The Chinese had the problem of this being completely alien to them. They had no idea what I was doing. But they were like very into learning, right?
Yeah.
So they're very into learning and they got it very quickly. The English speakers were working primarily in English, but they knew some Hebrew and they were doing okay. The Hebrew speakers had the biggest problem because they thought they knew what they were reading, right? Because modern Hebrew and classical Hebrew could be different. And so they got confused. They would see something and they're like, and you'd ask them to translate something and it would be very, very strange. So, so everybody has their challenges. A couple of key verses here. So one of the key verses here is that let me find it. I have to translate. Of course, it's the poteach et yadecha must be a kol ratzon, that God opens, is that you open your hands and you satisfy the needs of all living creatures, right? And this is a very important verse. And the Shulchan Aruch itself, the Code of Jewish Law, says that a person should actually has to have kavanah, has to think about this verse when they say it. We have the custom to open our hands, right? To open our hands, at like beggars, so to speak, right? When we say this verse, and the idea, of course, when we say poteach et yadeh, God opens his hands. We know that God does not have hands, right? He's not a physical being. He's not a physical being to have hands, but metaphorically, right? But metaphorically, that he opens his hands to offer, right? To offer to us, what we need, right? What satisfies us, right? To satisfies us. What satisfies us? And it says not just, it says, the kol chai ratzon. He says the kol chai, all life. Not just we shouldn't just be imagining, oh, okay. Some people we think to ourselves, okay, God just takes care of me. He's not just taking care of me. He's also taking care of the birds. He's also taking care of the plants. He's also keeping all of these atoms, all the electrons and all of these atoms in their orbit. Right? He's taking care of business.
Taking care of business.
Taking care of all the business, right? He's taking care of all the business. Okay, so there's nothing, right? Taking care of all the business. And many important lines here. It says, Karov Adonai be'emet. That God is close to all who call to him be'emet, right? In truth. It's beautiful, also a beautiful line. That we have to be sincere with God, right? And we have to really call, right? That's part of the problem. I say part of the problem with formal prayer is that it can interrupt our real prayers, right? We have to take a moment to actually call on God, right?
You have to make kavanah.
Right, and to really to speak to God, but to speak be'emet with your heart, right? In truth, to say, one true word, one true sentence. It doesn't, sometimes I had a friend, he used to meditate, he used to speak to God for 2 hours a day. I thought, dude, this is too much, I mean, you want to do 20 minutes, you want to do an hour, okay, but 2 hours. And he says, my 2 hours, maybe your 5 minutes. I said, why? He says, because I wait until I can find one true word. I wait until I find the moment where I say something which is absolutely sincere. I have no ulterior motive. I have nothing else going on in my mind. I have no other distractions. I just have That
That's single.
that single thing, I'm saying the one true thing. You know, I'm asking, even if it's asking God, are you asking God for what you truly want? Not what you think you should want. Not what you think you should want, but what are you asking God for what you really, 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 really want from the bottom of your heart, the bottom of your soul? Is that really what you want? Right? Or is it what you think God wants to hear? Right? You can't you can't fool God.